Hello and welcome to Catamount Community Connection, our weekly public affairs program here at Catamount Radio. I'm Brian Collamore. Welcome in. And we get together each week and speak with community leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and political arenas. Our program is sponsored by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. And show number, let me think here, 180. The 180th Vermont State Fair, folks, is coming up in August this summer, and it will coincide rather nicely with the 250th birthday of the United States of America. So again, I just want to thank the Rutland County Agricultural Society. They've been the sponsor of this program since we had it, and that was, gosh, I think it's been 3 years now. I know we're well over 100 shows, and it's been a pleasure to have them on board, and we always speak very highly of the fair because it deserves to be spoken very highly about. They do a great job down there. We're going to have Robert Congdon on. I know I keep promising you that, but we will have him on, and he'll be able to tell us which artists will be coming to the fair this year and maybe some of the new attractions that we hope to see happening down at the Vermont State Fairgrounds. Our show today will feature Mayor Tom Donahue, and he was on right before the March town meeting and then right after it, in which he was elected to be the mayor of the city of Rutland. But we haven't had him on since, and I thought, it's been 5-6 weeks, a couple of months. We'd have him back on to see what's going on in downtown Rutland and throughout the city itself. So, Tom, welcome. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be here now after 6 weeks on the job and a lot going on, so I'm anxious to talk about it. And I want to continue to be what we call the communicator-in-chief now, because it's so important that we communicate what is happening on a daily, weekly basis at City Hall throughout our community and even in the region, because this is a rising tide that floats all boats here in Rutland County. But I did want to harken back just for a moment to the Vermont State Fair. I got to say I love it. I'm anxious to be at it this year coming up. And I have to say my bias, though, is the Maple-Rama.
Oh, yeah.
Love the Maple-Rama.
I love the dairy section and especially the maple candy section. Yeah. I go in there, and for $5, you get this box of maple candy. To be fair, I usually buy about 10 or 12 boxes and bring them home.
That's awesome.
Sometimes I put them in the freazer, and sometimes I can't help it. I eat it before I can do that. So I love maple candy.
No, there's so much to like about it, but I have to say, maybe it's the sweet tooth. I don't know. Maybe it's the Vermont product, right before your eyes. But love that section. The old dairy bar, everything down there, the 4-H building.
And it's a great place to meet people. So
you're not kidding.
For politicians, you just walk along and here you go.
Yeah. And that's really important to be able to communicate with the electorate, our constituents, personally.
So for those that don't realize, again, it's August, and it's here. It'll be here before you know it. And as I say, we'll have Robert Congdon on, the president of the fair, at some point. Well, the weather's changed a little bit since we had you on last. We're beginning to see, certainly longer days. It hasn't yet reached that sort of summer-like feel. We've been going through a little bit of cloudy weather and coolish, 50s and 60s with a wind. But eventually, we're going to get into much more pleasant weather. I do see some progress being made downtown at the pit. Maybe we can start by talking about that.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, on a weather-wise, just a quick tangent, that I was at the Rutland County Parent-Child Center event this morning, the walk and run 5K for prevention, and it's Prevention Month, and that they had a nice event this morning that I was able to speak at very briefly. I think I did a good job of speaking briefly, because they did give me a microphone. I said, but I made it a point, because the weather, I just wanted to point that out, because the weather was, to your point, finally turned, and it was gorgeous, and what a great day for that walk. Yeah. Last year, I know they had some rain, but, shout out to them for organizing a great event, all the people that turned out. And then, of course, the city facilities there with the recreation department, which do a great job of providing. They start at George Eddy. And then, our city police department was there. Our fire department was there. It was fantastic. So, a weather-related event. And, so I'm with you 100% on that turn. Now, along those lines, we are seeing, the beginning soon of what we consider our construction season here in Vermont. This is always rapid because, yes, you do have to make hay while the sun shines in Vermont. It's difficult to build in most seasons. So this is a significant time for us. And what you see down there is that $5 million remediation going on in the pit. The pit is going to actually become more of a pit. It's getting deeper as they dig that out. You're going to see a lot of traffic. There's going to be a lot of big trucks that have to haul that away because it is contaminated soils. There is no harm to the public. This is not an issue there. But there will be a point where you might see some Tyvek suits out there. Those are those white suits and so forth. There will be a lot of communication with the public that week, just to let them know exactly what is happening there in the pit, so there's no concern about any danger for the public, which there isn't. But they'll communicate exactly what they're doing, so everybody kind of has an idea, and not to panic when you see some guys in white suits out there, which I would completely understand.
Yeah. Do you have a timeline for when we might see that concrete slab poured?
Well, there's a multi-pronged sort of approach to this, and some of it simultaneous, but none of that can happen until that remediation is done. So I don't have an exact time yet. But the remediation is a critical piece because of all the things that were there before. The Rutland Herald, of course, but a dry cleaner, and those various things that have contaminated those soils. So nothing can happen until that's done. I know that they're out there bulldozing it now. But the reason I mentioned the multi-prong is because the Department of Public Works is already looking at Whale Street and the construction that needs to go on Whale Street, and then Center Street. Because some of those things will have to go on at the same time because of this, exactly what you point out, the weather and the window of time that we have to do it.
I figured 5 months, maybe 6, depending on the weather, by September.
Yeah. And first frost, they used to say, they used to use October 15th, I think, for City Department of Public Works projects into the ground. And then after that, it was a roll of the dice. If you happen to get a protracted summer, great. You got a little more time out of it, but they never really planned anything after that just because of the frost. And once that hits, you're done. So Center Street is next after that. But in the meantime, something I'd like to talk about today, and it's kind of not quite an announcement, but public information that we need to get out there, is there will be a Center Street plan being released in the next 2 weeks. So you'll hear more about that as far as the date in May, that there'll be public meetings, so that people can see what the architects have come up with and the engineers have come up with for Center Street. And there's going to be 3 different versions, and a couple that involve traffic. So when I say that, what I mean is there will be a 2-way street version as it is now, and there'll actually be a couple of 1-way street versions. And they're going to get a lot of public input and, stakeholders too. Stakeholders being building owners and business owners and everybody who's got a stake in it in some way. But the public input is going to be really important. Here's what I have said recently, that dating all the way back to when I was in City Hall the first time with Jeff Wenberg as mayor. And, we had Center Street plans way back then. We even had like a catwalk connecting the buildings back when malls were a thing, and it was all about the indoor experience. And I'm sure there's multiple studies that are still kicking around, and, as they always say, collecting dust. Well, true. And so as mayor, I want to make sure that this one doesn't collect dust. Let's make a decision once these are released. Let's pick the one that the majority of us like, and then let's get it done. Because a transformation of Center Street will be fun and exciting. It'll be new. It'll be, it will create momentum and continue to keep downtown on the map. By the way, when I say that, this is a focus on downtown because of the hotel, because of all the investment in the Paramount and so forth. We're excited about that investment. At the same time, I want to just shout out to every business in Rutland. Every business that exists, every new business that opens in Rutland is important. We're a very small 8 square mile community wrapped around by the town of Rutland. Every business is important. It provides employment. It provides shopping opportunities and or services of some sort. And so I kind of am a cheerleader for all business in Rutland. But clearly, the focal point has always been a successful and vibrant downtown.
For sure. And again, for those of you that are not aware, eventually, and neither the mayor or I have a fixed date about it. But once the dirt is all gathered out and transported out of state, there will be a time when a concrete pad, I don't know how thick it'll be, but it will be poured, which will serve as the base, the sort of foundation for what will be a new hotel. And I think at that point, people will really begin to get an idea of the size of the hotel and what's going to go in there. And then gradually, and I don't think I know we're not going to be finished with it this summer, but at some point, different stages of construction will happen. There'll be, I think, 7 floors to the building, including permanent housing for some folks with apartment-type buildings,
right.
And then, overnight rentals like a hotel, and then a bar, restaurant, or whatever on the top floor where you can see pretty much 360 degrees.
And the view from there, anytime you're up there at that level, even at the top of the parking deck, you ever look at that view. And some of the local TV stations on their news station side of it have been putting cams up around downtown Rutland and so forth. And the view is incredible. I mean, our streetscape is fantastic. It's a nationally historic, on the National Historic Register, the downtown itself, designated downtown in Vermont. And with the mountains surrounding it, the church steeples, the historic buildings, we really do have an amazing streetscape. And you can see the sun rise in the east and the sun set in the west. I mean, you can't beat it. So, right. Anything up there is absolutely going to be, a flagship cap on the, sort of like the icing on the cake on it, literally. It's going to be phenomenal. We're
talking to the city mayor, Tom Donahue. And we've talked a little bit about some of the things that will be happening downtown. Both Whale Street and Center Street will be redone with loads of infrastructure below street level.
Right.
Electrical, plumbing, sewer, all that kind of stuff, water. But I'm sure there are other things going that you want to make the public aware of, Tom.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, because you brought that up, it's a great point, Brian, the infrastructure. We have been in need, as you know, throughout the whole city of infrastructure improvements, upgrades of systems that are over 100 years old. And so this is going to be done in downtown, which will be a big deal because it will help with the water runoff as well as suppression. Now, we all know a fire occurred there. Let's face it. We know that it can happen, and it was significant. We don't want that to ever happen again. This is really going to change the game for fire suppression as well as some of the flooding we've experienced there, and the separating water, stormwater and sewer actually adds capacity back to our plant. There's a lot to love about it. The voters voted for that bond to be able to do that, and the increment in the valuation of the hotel property as it increases will pay the payments on that bond. We'll be up front with it, but they'll catch us up. And so it's a great way to do it. We're only one of 2 tax increment financing districts in the county. There's only 2 allowed. As a Vermont State Senator, you're well aware.
Per county, yeah.
Yeah, there's only 2 allowed per county. Killington got the first one. We were Johnny on the spot with the second one. And only about half a dozen operating, throughout the state. There's about 9, but I think some are not operating, so to speak. So it's a calling card, too, for us for future developers. So I'm very excited about having that arrow in our quiver of economic development of a tax increment financing district. And this will be a good model of how exactly that does work and how it can be a nice public-private partnership with a developer, and at the same time improve infrastructure that the voters love. I know I'm a taxpayer. I love getting our infrastructure improved because it's, that's the real nitty-gritty of what makes this city functional every day. Yep. And as a homeowner and a taxpayer, that's important to me. So I'm excited about that tax increment financing district portion of it. If you don't mind my saying, the other arrow in the quiver that I'm excited about, if you don't mind me taking a little bit of a changing the, what do I want to say?
Detour?
A little detour. Yeah, we'll go with a detour on topics, but along the same lines, which is the possibility of the Tier 1A exemption under Act 181. There's a lot not to like, as you knew, and have been working to fix about Act 181 under Act 250, but you've done a great job with that. And at the same time, you've left intact opportunities that are critical to Rutland City, like the Tier 1A exemptions that Ed Bove, our Director of Planning, has the application already on my desk. We're waiting for an approval now on a Rutland Regional Plan, which the Rutland Regional Planning Commission will be voting on this month. And that's another box we have to just check. Now, all boxes are checked for a community that qualifies for the Land Use Review Board to actually grant a Tier 1A exemption for Rutland City, I should say. And our designated area in the city that would affect is virtually all of it. Not all of it, but most all of it. So for all intents and purposes, all of it. And what that's going to do as an opportunity for Rutland City to develop and to be a huge attraction for developers and investors is, I can't understate it. I cannot understate it. I said it during my campaign. I'm going to continue to say it till it's done. That's one thing I have to get, I as mayor, but we as a community, we as the city hall have to get across the finish line this summer. And what that's going to do is allow us a complete exemption under Act 250 for any size development for housing, commercial development, and industrial development. And what that means is, for us, is not that all heck can break loose in your community and just build anything anywhere. That's not the case at all. We qualify because we have all of the pieces in place to properly designate development and allow development to occur. We have zoning, we have subdivisions, we have a master plan, we have a full-time planning department. These are all actually boxes you have to check. You have to have a planning department. We have ample capacity in our sewer and our water, in our plant that the voters for years have invested millions of dollars in. We have the largest water treatment plant in the state of Vermont. We have capacity. So those are all calling cards, huge calling cards for any community, especially one the size of Rutland, that wants to attract investment business, which means more shopping opportunities, more housing opportunities. This is a big deal. And one of the things that I have to get accomplished on my watch as mayor of the city of Rutland, the Tier 1A exemption, which part and parcel with the tax increment financing district, and then other development that is providing a spark to Rutland right now, as AKA the hotel and the Paramount and so forth. Having Amtrak in and out of downtown Rutland every single day of the week, pretty big deal, honestly. These are all things that are going to make up a great pitch to anybody looking to develop in the state of Vermont. Rutland should be not just a contender, a leader in that discussion. And so we won't wait till people are knocking on our door and say, "Hey, come on in. What do you want to do?" Those are the low-hanging fruit. Those are the ones that were like, okay, there's a bonus. Somebody actually came to us today and knocked on the door. No, we need to be out marketing and promoting that to say, look at the things that we have for you that will save you. As an example, with Act 250, again, preaching to the choir to use as a senator, but will save you time. Time equals money in the process, and predictability. Right. You're going to know that if you follow all these rules under local control, we're going to provide you permits and permissions in a timely manner with a predictable outcome, and all that equals money in the process, which could save them hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. So I'm very, very, very excited about our economic opportunities for the city of Rutland starting now.
So just before we leave the hotel, or the downtown situation, I want to again shout out to the Belden family. Without their fortitude and ability to jump into this with both feet, I don't think any of this would have been possible. So that's the first thing. I hadn't even thought about the fire suppression element to that, Tom. And again, we're talking to Tom Donahue, Rutland City Mayor. But at one point, all the downtowns, and I'm talking way back in the 1880s and then through the early part of the 1900s, most buildings were wood and were made that way because that was what the current code or whatever is. And there have been countless numbers of fires in downtown Rutland that had to be put out. And I have still somewhere in my house that Rutland in Retrospect book.
Oh, yeah.
That I really, really enjoy going through that.
Yeah.
And Ray Mooney, to his credit, on Facebook, does a picture or two every now and then of an old building in Rutland. Some of them are still up, and
those.
Some aren't. And a lot of them were consumed by fire. So just to hear that this whole project downtown will increase the ability of our city fire department to take charge when they need to, and let's hope they never have to again, but we know that's probably not the case. That's an important consideration. And then the other thing is to the future development of that whole TIF district, the greater the grand list is, the more that you can spread the burden of taxes across different people's shoulders. So it really is it's a critical piece of what might be happening here very soon.
Oh, thank you for saying that, Brian, because that is my motivating factor, is grow the grand list. I was just with our assessor yesterday, Katie Langloy, and just talking to her about this. We have to grow the grand list. And that means the valuation of all properties. And as you said, the tax burden can then be spread out a little more evenly amongst us rather than as the grand list shrinks, we shoulder more of that burden, and that we cannot go in that direction any longer. People are just taxed to death, and we need to be able to grow that grand list. So thank you for bringing that up, because
for sure.
the economic development means increasing the grand list and spreading that tax burden out.
Yeah, it's like a team. If you only have 2 people on the team, either you win or lose with the 2, but if a team is 10, now all of a sudden you can spread that out a little bit, give everybody a little bit different responsibility, and the end result usually is a lot better. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that too. And again, we're talking with Tom Donahue, the Rutland City Mayor. We're going to take our first break here on Catamount Community Connection, and we'll be back with Tom in just a minute. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. I'm Brian Collamore, and happy that you are joining us. This program, by the way, was recorded on April 25th, and it will air on May 3rd. So the walk/run that Tom referenced earlier already happened a week ago, but that's okay. It's a great group, that Rutland Parent-Child Center, and I hope they made a lot of money with that. On that, I didn't get a chance to go to that, but maybe somebody listening did. And then the other thing we'll mention today is both, hopefully, depending on when you hear this show, today is also the day for the Loyalty Day Parade, and it happens at 2 o'clock on the afternoon of May 3rd. So if you're hearing this on, for instance, WJJR, it hasn't happened yet, because we air this show at 6 in the morning on Sundays. So the Loyalty Day Parade will happen later today. But if you're listening on some of the other radio stations, or you listen at your leisure later on PEG TV, it may already have happened. So I just wanted to mention that. And again, to give a shout out to the fair, because we couldn't do this without their support as well. Our show brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which is bringing you the Vermont State Fair, and has in Rutland since 1846. The 180th Vermont State Fair is coming up later this year in August, and it will be right in time with the 250th birthday of the United States of America. Today we're talking with Tom Donahue. Thought we'd get caught up with our new mayor in the city and what has happened since, he's been on the duty here for about 6 weeks, and we've talked a lot about some of the things that will be happening in downtown Rutland. But I know there's other stuff happening throughout the county, really, because Rutland serves as the sort of focal point for many of the county towns. There's 27 in Rutland County, and many people come to the county come to the city for either their occupation or to shop, or maybe even for school. And it's important that we focus not just on the downtown area, but also what else is going on countywide. And I know we've talked a little bit about Act 181. Again, by the time you hear this show on May 3rd, my guess is that that Act 181 may have been amended to remove the provisions regarding the Tier 3 designation. And frankly, without the Tier 3, there isn't any more Tier 2, because Tier 2 was everything that was left over after Tier 1 and Tier 3. So if there's no Tier 3, there won't be a Tier 2. It'll either be 1A, 1B, or everything else. And then the other thing was the road rule, and we've spent a lot of time, Devin Neary was on this show a couple of weeks ago from the Rutland Regional Planning Commission, explaining the problem with the road rule. And again, not so much in the city of Rutland, but for instance, if you live in a town outside a major urban area and you have, let's say, 100 acres, and at some point in your life you realize you're not going to live forever, you You won't be the first person that ever lives forever. And you want to give a piece of that land to your son, daughter, whatever. And in some cases, people don't want to live right on the road. They want to move their house up somewhere out of sight and have a little privacy. Well, if the driveway to that residence was going to extend for 800 feet or more, it would automatically trigger an Act 250 permit requirement. And as Tom had mentioned earlier, unfortunately, through all these years, because Act 250 was originally passed in 1970, I was here at the time it did pass with Governor Davis, it has become a little bit more awkward, maybe that's putting it nicely, a lot more expensive, and a lot less predictable. So you spend a whole bunch of money on attorneys, and I have nothing against a good old attorney, and then you go through this DEC permit process, which also costs money. And unfortunately, you can't. Well, I know of a local business that it took them 3 years to get a permit to move what their current business location is right in Rutland town, a little further south on Route 7 into North Clarendon. He finally did get the permit, but it cost thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that accomplished. So we want to make it as easy as we can, especially in the areas that, for whatever reason, have been decided. I don't always agree with, that we should be telling people where they should live. If you want to buy a piece of property way out in the middle of nowhere, you ought to be able to do it, and it's your land. But anyway, the Act 250 relaxation in terms of the Tier 1A designation is important to a city like Rutland, and certainly other areas that have a lot of people living in a more dense place. So anyway, I just wanted to mention those two things. But
yeah, and I want to say that's a great point. I think that's very, very important that you, as the legislature, addressed that, and that you found that perfect balance so that the city can still take advantage of it, but that you've cleared up those issues that were grave concern out in the more urban or rural areas. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not sure it's a perfect solution either, because I've been there 12 years. There's relatively few things that we pass in Montpelier that I ever think are perfect. Some of them make things a little better, but you can always go back and amend it and change it later and say, we never thought about that.
Yeah, and by the way, you did that really swiftly as well. And I got to give you credit for that, too, as being nimble. For the legislature is not necessarily known for that, but you did a tremendous job.
Well, there was tremendous pushback. I mean, there's a Facebook page with over 12,000 people, and it sprung up within a month. So it was obvious that there was something wrong with it.
Yep, and you left our part where we can still do what we need to do, and we're excited about that.
So what else is going on in the county?
Well, a lot of things. I've been doing some openings, and I'm just excited about that. So I want to celebrate every win. As I said, we're going to be winning again, and I want to celebrate the wins. And there's been quite a few different places that have opened. And you saw where Village Snack Bar is open. The Maple Angus has moved their operation into that, so that it's that's some investment in the city of Rutland. We're excited about. I actually had some fun with Google. It's called Captain Aquatics, Fin and Scales, which is up on North Main Street, which is sort of a place for fish and reptiles. Very, very unusual. It's a little museum for kids, if you will. That's my term for it, but where you can pay a fee and go in and entertain the kids for hours, seeing these incredible reptiles and fish and so forth. They also have a little reptile sitting service. So if you're going away for a week, you can leave your reptile. They're doing birthday parties up there. I actually got wrapped up in a photo op, literally, by their python snake. They named it Tiny. It wasn't tiny, and it found me warm, so it wrapped all around me. And I got Larry Copley, actually, Alderman Copley, took a nice photo and with Paul Clifford, and neither one of them wanted to wear the snake like I did, but they were happy to take the pictures. But very excited about those kind of new openings. Max and Dot and 26 Center Street downtown opened, and that's Jay Sabatasso's renovating that building and doing a beautiful apartment upstairs. With this great thriving business downstairs that just opened. And by the way, we went to that grand opening, and what a hoot. It was, they had a DJ, the energy in the room. I said, now this is how you do an opening. It was mobbed, and it was lively, and people were just having a good time. And then, of course, someone that are, I guess, a little more laid back openings because they wanted to get everything right. I popped into Z-Mart, which is a 99 Woodstock Avenue. It was a gas station, had Sunoco, but it was really dilapidated. And I had to stop in and say hello and introduce myself to the general manager and say thank you for investing here in Rutland, because it looks beautiful. I mean, it's lit up and it's clean and it's fresh and it's new, and they took an old beat-up garage to do it. They have the Sunoco gas out front. They're going to be doing a bit of an opening, but they wanted to have it all done before they did that. I kind of went in there a little beforehand preemptively and just to say thank you for investing here. But those kind of things are happening, as well as, Anas Empanadas opened back up on 24th Wales Street, so that's open again. And also, there's going to be something coming up in the fall. It's Fox Hollow Forest School is going to be partnering with the BAC for an outdoor daycare experience. You'll be hearing a lot more about that. But all of a sudden now, you're getting that energy in Rutland. You're getting the enthusiasm and the confidence in investing in Rutland again. I haven't felt it this upbeat in a long time, Brian. I'm going to tell you, it's the energy, the positivity out there is fantastic. And I'm going to take a bit of a turn here and talk about something really interesting, because our good friend Terry J. brought this up to me the other day. And he said, is it just me or am I seeing more police cruisers around? We're not necessarily seeing more. We have the same number, and we're trying to increase the officers, but you're seeing them more strategic. So if I can take this quick tangent, sure. It's so great when you talk about economic development, when you talk about people living in your community, moving to Rutland. It also is, you're talking about workforce as well, and you're talking about the importance of our schools and everything, all in the same conversation. What's key to a lot of that?
Public safety.
Public safety, exactly. And so what I've been saying for a long time, and I've been focused on this as a city alderman and now the mayor, I spend a lot of time across the street at the police department, by invitation, by the way. I'm not getting in their way, but they love to talk, to bring me over to show me what they're doing. I'm amazed at some of the things they're doing. Not all of it takes place on the street in the cars. They're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and I'm so proud of them all over there. But one of the things that they're doing is it's a app on your basically on their computer, I should say, where they can track where the police cars are at all times. But more importantly, what they're doing is very strategically covering the city. And it's almost like a game on a computer screen, except it's real time, real life. They can set the time of it. Let's say it's pick 24 hours. It shows all of the streets in Rutland, and they all start as red. And what happens is, as they drive around and patrol the neighborhoods, all those dots on every street get eaten up, disappear off the screen, and they go to blue dots. So you can look at the screen and you can say, all over the city, here's where every neighborhood has been covered by a police officer and a police vehicle in this period of time. And you can set that period of time. So in other words, if you have a place that's more troublesome, you can set that time to be shortened so that they're there more often. But what happens is, when you're not in those neighborhoods, it remains red. So you can look at one screen and say, okay, we haven't visited this today. We need to get up there and just be out and visible, because that's a deterrent to crime. This is all what I've been talking about for the longest time now, well over a year. And the police department, by the way, is all about it. Proactive policing, directed patrols. That really prevents crime. It keeps the numbers down. The number of calls a year ago was over 17,000 calls in a year. So we want to achieve this reputation for public safety, but you can't achieve it with numbers like that. I know it's all relative in Vermont. Crime here is not as bad as crime elsewhere. That is a true statement. Nevertheless, it's relative to us. It's what we've been used to in the past versus what we have to get used to now. And there's no reason we should have to get used to it. Let's fix it. Let's bring it down. These police officers and the Chief Prouty are all about it. They're working hard with it. They're working smart. They're coming up with computer programs and technology that makes us better at our jobs, more effective, more efficient. And they're doing it with the officers as we slowly, incrementally bring them up so that there's more officers. So they're not just responding to calls because that's just all the time they have, but that they actually have time to actually do the proactive work, which then brings the numbers down because it's keeping crime from happening in the first place. And this one program alone, and there's several more initiatives that they've got going on right now, but them just highlighting this one is so amazing when you think about it, because you're actually be able to look in and say, hey, how did we cover the city? You can look and see every single day, how did we cover the city? And have we been? And you can make sure, is there an area that's red, that's over the limit, hasn't been a cruiser through that area? Let's get some cruisers driving through that area. Let's make that light up blue. And so I love what they're doing over there. I think the public's going to love it. I think you're going to see the results. And the reason I hearken that all the way back to Terry J's comments, because he says, is it just me or have I seen some more police cruisers around lately? It isn't just him. You are seeing more police cruisers, and that program that they're doing very proactively is the reason why.
Yeah, we had Chief Prouty on, probably a month and a half ago now. Well, it'll be time to get him checked in here, too, to make sure that everything's good with them. But one of the things he also talked about, besides this proactive policing, was, again, not having an officer jump in a cruiser and just drive around aimlessly. Like,
right.
There's a plan, there's a procedure, there's a reason for why they're where they are. The other thing that maybe a lot of people don't think about, and if you think you have stress on your own job, and I'm sure there are people listening that do undergo a lot of feelings of stress, try being a law enforcement officer, and mental health after a while becomes as important as physical health in terms of being able to administer their duties. And Matt was a very strong proponent in finding a way to help people out that work for him to feel better about what they do. And if they need to support and help, that they'll be able to get it. And that really struck me that day. So I hope that's also in the works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, they actually have a counselor who is, a legitimate, with degrees in that field on staff. So it is something that is in the police budget, and that work can be done throughout the days, weeks, months, years with the officers, because you are absolutely right. It is a very difficult job, one I'm not cut out for, but I'm excited about being able to support them in their work, help motivate them, and knowing that City Hall right across the street is behind them. And the similar situation at the fire station, they go through some of the same difficult emotional things when they're dealing with these fairly significant fires. And, there was already one just over a month ago that they were dealing with, big blazes. Those are the kind of jobs in Rutland that you can't compare to others. They're, you're putting your life on the line. I do spend a lot of time with the fire chief too, and he's doing a great job up there. And we can be very proud of our police officers and our firefighters. This city is protected. That's one of the things that, as a taxpayer, I've always felt good about spending my money on is those kind of public safety investments. But those, again, should be calling cards for us when we're trying to attract people to live here. Those are reasons, because, Brian, they don't have full-time police and they don't have full-time firefighters outside of Rutland City in this county. We do. Those are things that we don't talk enough about when we're trying to attract people to live, work, and visit, recreate here. But we need to talk more about it, and I will be talking more about it.
Yeah, and a thing you can do, you listeners to this show, is just thank them when you see them. It doesn't cost you any money to do that, and it means the world to somebody to hear somebody say, hey, appreciate what you're doing. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Now, along those lines, one of the big things that's going to be going on this summer, and another team of people that I'm proud of, and I want to tell your listeners what a great team of people we have at City Hall. It is running smooth at City Hall, I got to tell you. I'm in there now six weeks, and I spent a lot of time there, and it's running well at City Hall. And part of City Hall is the extensions of City Hall. So you have the main building, and then you have your recreation department, which is so busy right now. They're transitioning from the winter to the summer.
DPW.
And then the Department of Public Works. Yep. Exactly. So I'm proud of what's going to be happening this summer with recreation and all the programs that they're transitioning to right now. Amazing, mind-boggling number. And then Department of Public Works. And the reason I want to bring them up, because they've got a lot of work to do this summer. They're going to be very busy. What a great team of people in that department as well. And I'm getting to know all of them. It's phenomenal. And I love motivating them and supporting them in their work. Not micromanaging, but I do like to lead from the front. I'm kind of a hands-on learner, so I'll spend more time with them than some leaders, because I feel that's the way I like to lead. But having said that, this Connor Park, as we know, Monsignor Connor Park, Meadow Street Park, on Meadow Street, of course, in Rutland, is undergoing a transformation there with this combined sewage storage tank. Right. It's a huge investment that we have voters have supported. And that's going to be really helping that neighborhood with separating that water and stormwater and sewer separations. It's going to be a huge storage, which will really, ironically, again, we have capacity in our plant, which is very, very important to have capacity in the plant. But this is actually going to up our numbers. We're going to have more capacity because of this, which is a phenomenal outcome. But that is, and I'm reading from what Bob Prodovansky, the Public Works Commissioner, provided me. It's installation of a 612,000 precast concrete storage tank below the northern baseball diamond. So the reason I wanted to mention that is because the field is going to be kind of divided in half, so you won't be able to use those baseball fields this summer at all. So from that dividing line from, say, the outfield of the baseball diamond to the west will be under construction. And then to the north, though, that part of the park, which includes the playground and the courts there for basketball and so forth, will still remain open. So you might see some shift in events that are occurring there, definitely all the softball. There's talk about where they might relocate National Night Out this year, and some things might have to happen for one summer. But stay tuned for that. But the main part of the park facing from the east is open and be available for public enjoyment, but the west part, definitely not. But it'll be worth the wait to get this gigantic tank installed. And as it says here, the project was developed to mitigate Rutland City's long-standing combined sewer overflow issues. That's right. Right now, Rutland City operates the largest wastewater treatment facility in the state of Vermont. The largest wastewater treatment facility in the state of Vermont. A capacity of 22 million gallons per day. I went out and down and met with some of these
Well, we had
guys.
a tour.
Man, and it wasn't impressive. It's just you forget that the city has these amazing facilities. And the thing that I think about when I tour these facilities is not just the facility and the people running them, but the fact that they're running them 24/7, 365. When we're on the weekend, when we're at sleep at night, these facilities are running, operating, keeping us safe, whether it's public safety or safe water, sewage treatment, and so forth, are all happening 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This is what your City Hall staff is doing for you. It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive teams of people that we've got put together, and pretty impressive facilities that we have invested in, that we have available, and at the same time are continuing to make investments like this storage tank, which will be a game changer for that section of town.
We're talking to Rutland City Mayor Tom Donahue here on Catamount Community Connection. We need to take our second break, and we'll be back with more in just a minute. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection, your weekly public affairs show here on Catamount Radio. Happy to have you listening, regardless of what station we're on or what time of day it is. I again want to mention that PEG TV airs these as well. You can actually just Google PEG TV and go to the archives, and it will list all of the Catamount Community shows, who was on it, when it ran, and then you can click on it and at your convenience, listen to the show. Tom Leopold does a great job down there, and we want to thank him for including us in his weekly offerings. Today, we are talking about a lot of different things that are happening in Rutland. By the way, again, our Rutland County Agricultural Society sponsoring the show. They brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. The 180th Vermont State Fair is coming up in August this summer. And Tom Donahue is our guest today, Rutland City Mayor. We've talked a lot about some of the areas of the city that will see some really substantial improvements made to them in the next couple years. We talked a little bit about the Meadow Street area, and that will be dug up to provide nearly a 700,000-gallon tank for stormwater. And what happens there, what happens right now, to be perfectly frank about it, it sounds kind of gross, but all the poop, all the waste, and all the stormwater is together at the Rutland treatment plant. So when we have a major rain event, in order to take the pressure off the treatment plant, they have to release some of that, and unfortunately it gets into Otter Creek and other places. So what this tank will allow us to do with stormwater only will be to collect it for a bit until the rain event is over, and then slowly, gradually introduce it into the waste treatment. It's a water treatment thing. Anyway, trust me, folks, it's going to be a good thing. We're not going to have all that stuff going into the creek like we have now. So,
and you have a lot of water problems on Meadow Street.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, these should resolve a lot of that problem. So great investment.
What else is going on?
Well, I did want to mention I had a nice sit down with Nate Bissell of Bissell Maple Farms. They're out of Ohio, and they're the ones that acquired what was GH Grimm, formerly, and then Leader Evaporator Company that moved out of that building on Pine Street, 33,000 square foot building that was then empty for all these years. And these guys, because Grimm apparently was in this community in Ohio that Nate Bissell is from. So there was this connection that he had and this affinity for Grimm and what he did for the maple industry that attracted him to want to invest in this building in Rutland, Vermont. So happy to have investors like him here and to do this maple equipment, maple distribution, be able to work with local maple producers to buy their syrup directly from them and then distribute it accordingly, but out of Ohio. So they were here. He called and wanted to meet, and I said, I'll be right down. Spent an hour with the guy, just not only talking and meeting his crew that were here a week ago, but actually getting a little tour of some of the old equipment that G.H. Grimm had actually utilized in that facility. It was the real deal maple equipment from back in the day. It was quite a thing to see. But again, another great indicator of investors looking at Rutland, looking at the development of buildings that we already have, because we're 90% built out. So it's not like we're going to be able to put in things in a vacant space. But we're really doing, like with the plaza, we'll be redeveloping existing spaces and turning them into something productive and new. Again, so breathing life into our historic buildings and facilities throughout the whole community, and that's what Nate Bissell is doing. So good to go down and meet with him. And then one other thing I wanted to, before I forget to leave off, because you mentioned spring and we also talked about the police department, I do want to give a shout out to the Bike Patrol is back, and they're out there again. And I love the Bike Patrol because not only are they covering some significant ground during the day, right now they're saving us gas prices, but additionally, they're able to go where cruisers aren't. And that is another effective way to police. And then, of course, there's nothing between them and either the nefarious characters or just the community at large when it's nice to see officers. But because they're out there when they're on the bike, they're literally physically out there. So shout out to the Bike Patrol. Excited to have them back out there. That means winter is in fact over, thank God, and that we can start to enjoy the summer again. But you'll see these officers riding around on the bicycles, and they're not, although they are staying in shape because they're covering a lot of miles. It's great physical fitness, but they're working and they're working hard, and they're taking those bikes in places that the cruisers can't go. So, great way to proactively police. Other thing I wanted to talk about while we still have time, I've been making some appointments. You may have noticed how smoothly the Board of Aldermen's meetings have been going. Shout out to the Board of Aldermen for, running these really great meetings in concert with their mayor and our department heads, which I call our leadership team meeting, which I hold in City Hall. We're working with the board, and I said I was going to. I'm living up to that pledge. I talked to the aldermen throughout the week, and the key to that, as you can imagine, is communication. And there's no surprises on Monday nights. They know what's on the agenda. We have a deadline for that, and I make sure that the leadership team has their agenda items by the deadline, so the board has them days in advance. And anything that can go to them sooner, send it to them sooner. But I'll have those conversations with them almost daily with one or another alderman, so that we're talking things through. They're putting things in their committees, and we're vetting things there. So that when you get to the board meetings, the last one was 58 minutes. The one before that was 32 minutes for a Board of Aldermen's meeting. This is because they're informed. This is because they're vetting things. They're asking their questions. They're able to talk to department heads. They're able to talk things through with me. They're able to talk to the community in between, not having the sausage making going on at the board meeting itself. That's not what board meetings are for, whether it's that board or any other board. They're decision making and policy setting boards, and all that work should be done in the 2 to 3 weeks in between the meetings so that they come knowledgeable and comfortable in a place of comfort to vote on behalf of their constituents on the issues that are before them. That's really, really important.
You know where I saw the minutes is, I call him Rootin' Tootin' Roy Newton. He owns the Lakeside News, and he gets the minutes of all of the town and city board meetings, and I read them every week. And you're right, it seemed like so-and-so made a motion, it was seconded, and it passed. And then they kind of move on to the next event. So, yeah, it's always good to let people know ahead of time. I mean, the same thing is true in the legislature. If we take up a particular bill, we only can read so quickly, and we can only absorb and understand what's in it at a certain pace. And especially if some of these bills get to be 100 pages long, it takes a long time to get through them. But the longer you give people a chance to kind of digest it, the better off you are. Because then, if there are legitimate questions, you can solve those more quickly at the board meeting and get things done.
Exactly, and it's not because they're skirting their responsibility. In fact, they're able to do a better job the way we're doing it now, and they are doing a better job. They're doing a great job, and it's been fun to work with them. It helps that I was on the board for the last year, so I've been on the other side of that. I know what it felt like, and I won't blindside these people. They deserve the respect. They're elected officials. They're doing a good job. They have a hard job as well, and we need to be able to communicate with them on a daily basis. So that's occurring, and it's making a big difference. The city, then, it reflects on the city. It doesn't look chaotic here. It's smooth. It looks smooth because it is smooth. It's going really well. Along those lines, the board has been kind enough to approve all my appointments thus far. I appointed recently, of course, Barry Beauchamp to replace myself on the Board of Aldermen. He got a unanimous vote. I was very proud of that. Barry's a great addition to the board. Recently, I was able to appoint Dick Corsell back to the Rutland Redevelopment Authority. Of course, he is the CEO at Rutland Mental Health Community Care Network, and actually ran the Downtown Rutland Partnership, highly qualified person to sit on that board. He was excited about coming back. He was excited about my election and said, yeah, I want to commit to that. And so he was recently approved by the board, as well as Matt Whitcomb brought him back into public service already. Very, very appreciative that he was willing to step up and serve as a Rutland City Police Commissioner. That passed the board as well. So those appointments are done. I actually had two others that went before the school board. Kathy Solsa chose to return, as well as Ryan Carney. There was 2 open seats that they had created. They chose to return, and I was excited to appoint them back to the school board. I've also been attending the school board meetings. The schools are one of our major assets. We've got some great facilities. We've got great administration and support staff, teachers, and the kids, it's so significant here with our schools, Northwest, Northeast, Rutland Middle School, Rutland Intermediate School, Rutland High School, and last but far from least, Stafford Technical Center. So important to, when we're trying to attract people here. They talk about public safety. What else do they talk about? I ran the Chamber of Commerce for 21 years. I know what they talk about when they come here and they say, how are the schools? To be able to say that we have this tremendous school system. As mayor, I don't want to be on the other side of the city saying, that's your thing over there, we'll stay over here. I want to make sure they know that they're supported, that the mayor is involved, not to get in their way, but to be an advocate for the schools, to support them in what they're trying to do, because they're so important to this community that a mayor, I think, is remiss to ignore the schools. I haven't. I've been to 4 meetings already. I swore in personally the new elected members to the school board, and I was recently there for the vote of my 2 appointees. Both of them passed unanimously by the school board, and I then subsequently swore them in person. That hasn't been done before, but you'll see me there too, because I think it's so important that we spend time supporting our schools. So I'm really excited about these appointments. I will tell you, it's a little exercise I'm going through now to determine all boards and commissions in the city and making those appointments or reappointments. And the reason is that we've actually got out of sync a bit with the appointments or the reappointments of our members. We have so many boards. You have a library board and a Rutland Housing Authority board. You have the Planning Commission. You have the Rutland the Development Review Board, you have an Architectural Review Board, you have the Rutland Redevelopment Authority. It's a lot of boards, but that's good. That's our local control again. Those are the kind of things that are going to work with our Tier 1A exemption. But having said that, that's also a lot of people that you're pulling. You want to have a pretty deep bench there. You got to have some good people on those boards, and you got to have people that are willing to serve. And so I'm finding those people. I'm going through the dates of all of the dates that they're supposed to be reappointed or should have been reappointed. What I'm finding, there's a lot that should have been reappointed and never were. So I'm going to be going through this exercise. So the board will be seeing a lot from me in the coming weeks with multiple appointments. Some of them filling any vacancies, some of them just basically reappointing existing members of boards that for one reason or another fell off the radar and were not reappointed in a timely manner. And so I'm going to go make sure that that's all accomplished. I'm in that process now. So there'll be many, many more of these. The typical process for most boards is, and many by charter, is that I have my appointments. It depicts who I appoint, particularly how many and where and what the requirements are, city residency or not, so forth. And then they go before the board. They're nominated by me. They're tabled for 2 weeks, and then the board votes them on, and then they can start their work. Or if they're already on there, they just continue their work straight through. So that exercise is happening. And last but not least, I want to mention, it's on people's minds, the city attorney. And by the time this airs, I'll have nominated a city attorney for appointment to this city of Rutland. Okay.
As always, all I had to do was say, Tom Donahue's with us, and then I could go away for an hour, and Tom's talking when I get back. No, it's seriously, it's always good to see you. Thank you for coming on. We'll definitely have you back in the next month or so and continue to get your updates.
Awesome. Thank you. I love being on here. Communicator in Chief. Let's go.
Okay, we'll see all of you next week here on Catamount Community Connection.